The training yard echoed with the sharp crack of Korvax's scaled fist, striking the reinforced combat dummy. The impact sent vibrations through the entire structure, causing several younger cadets to step back in nervous admiration. His reptilian features gleamed under the artificial sunlight as he demonstrated the third variation of the Gextal combat form, each movement precise and devastating. "Observe the positioning," Korvax called to the gathered circle of first-year cadets, his voice carrying the natural authority of his warrior caste. The strike originates from the core muscles, transfers through the shoulder assembly, and delivers maximum force at 0.04 seconds after initial engagement. His muscular tail swept in a perfect counterbalance arc as he pivoted into the next stance. This technique has been perfected over 17 generations of combat specialists. Vex Thule, his lieutenant and self-appointed combat analyst, nodded approvingly from the sidelines. His cybernetic implants whirred softly as he processed the biomechanical data, streaming across his optical display. Probability of successful engagement against standard academy opponents, 94.7%, he announced to the group. Probability against lower-tier species. He paused for dramatic effect. Approaches statistical certainty. The younger cadets murmured among themselves, a mixture of awe and intimidation rippling through their ranks. Korvax allowed himself a satisfied growl. These demonstrations served multiple purposes: training the inexperienced, maintaining his reputation, and reinforcing the natural hierarchy that kept the academy functioning smoothly. Species with inferior combat capabilities needed to understand their place in the galactic order. "The key principle," he continued, transitioning into a defensive posture, "is recognizing that combat superiority stems from genetic optimization, proper training, and respect for established techniques. Those who attempt to circumvent these fundamentals invariably—" "Oh, sorry I'm late." The cheerful voice cut through Korvax's lecture like a plasma torch through hull plating. Every head turned toward the training yard entrance, where a small figure in a slightly rumpled academy uniform jogged toward them, one hand holding what appeared to be a maintenance toolkit. Olivia Martinez skidded to a stop at the edge of the combat circle, breathing only slightly harder than normal despite her obvious sprint across the academy grounds. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and several streaks of what looked like coolant fluid decorated her uniform sleeves. "I was helping maintenance fix the gravity generator in Section C," she explained to no one in particular, setting down her toolkit with a metallic clank. "Turns out the primary stabilizer just needed a good whack with a wrench. Who knew?" Korvax felt his jaw clench involuntarily. The human cadet had disrupted his demonstration, arrived in an unprofessional state, and now stood there smiling as if her tardiness was somehow amusing. Around the circle, he noticed several of the younger cadets looking between him and the human with obvious curiosity. "Cadet Martinez," he said, his voice dropping to the low register that usually made subordinates straighten their spines. "You have missed the first 20 minutes of essential combat instruction." "Really sorry about that," Olivia replied, completely unfazed by his tone. She glanced around the circle, nodding politely to the other students. "Did I miss anything important? I mean, besides the gravity generator thing. That was actually kind of urgent. Apparently the whole section was at risk of losing containment." Vex Thule's implants flickered as he processed this information. His analysis showed elevated stress hormones in several nearby cadets, but the human's biochemical readings remained remarkably stable. No elevated heart rate, no perspiration increase, no signs of the typical fear response his species had evolved to recognize and exploit. "Perhaps," Korvax continued, allowing his natural predator instincts to sharpen his focus, "you would benefit from a practical demonstration of why punctuality and proper preparation are essential for survival in combat situations." He stepped forward, noting with satisfaction how the other cadets automatically moved to widen the circle. This was how lessons were properly taught, through direct experience rather than theoretical discussion. The human would learn her place in the academy hierarchy, and the younger students would witness the consequences of disrespecting established order. "Oh," Olivia said, her eyebrows rising slightly. "You mean like a sparring match? I don't know if that's really necessary. I'm just trying to pass the basic combat requirements so I can focus on engineering coursework." The casual dismissal sent a pulse of irritation through Korvax's nervous system. Behind him, he heard Vexthul's implants emit a soft warning chime. Elevated aggression levels detected. Good. The human needed to understand that her species' reputation for stubborn ignorance would not be tolerated here. "In the Gextal warrior tradition," he announced, letting his voice carry across the training yard, "knowledge comes through experience, not academic theory. You will demonstrate your combat readiness, or you will be marked as unfit for academy continuation." This wasn't entirely true. Academy regulations didn't actually require impromptu combat demonstrations. But the human wouldn't know that. Around the circle, several cadets shifted nervously. Everyone knew Korvax's reputation, and everyone had heard the stories about human physical limitations. Olivia sighed, a sound that somehow managed to convey both resignation and mild annoyance. "Okay. I guess if it's really that important." She stretched her arms over her head, rolling, her shoulders in a way that looked more like someone preparing for routine exercise than mortal combat. "This kind of reminds me of Jake Morrison back in 10th grade. He was always picking fights because he thought being tall made him tough." "Assume ready position," Korvax commanded, settling into his preferred combat stance. His muscles coiled with practiced efficiency, weight balanced perfectly between his digitigrade legs, claws extended just enough to catch light and signal serious intent. From her position at the circle's edge, Zara activated her portable medical scanner. As the Academy's xenobiology specialist, she'd been observing the human cadet with professional curiosity since Olivia's arrival 3 weeks ago. The medical files from Earth were fascinating but incomplete, and she'd been hoping for an opportunity to collect more comprehensive physiological data. Olivia looked around the circle once more, her expression suggesting she was still hoping someone might call this whole thing off. When no intervention came, she shrugged and adopted what appeared to be a completely relaxed standing position. Feet shoulder-width apart, hands loose at her sides, looking more like she was waiting for a bus than preparing for combat. "Ready when you are," she said. Vexthul's combat probability calculations ran through final processing cycles. Human opponent. Unknown combat training. Inferior physical specifications. No visible weapons or defensive enhancements. Korvax. Elite warrior caste. 17 years formal training. Optimized predator physiology. Significant reach and strength advantages. Estimated engagement duration, 12 to 15 seconds. Korvax struck. His opening move was a textbook example of Gextal combat philosophy. A lightning-fast claw swipe designed to test the opponent's reflexes while positioning for a follow-up grapple. The technique had scored first blood against Academy instructors. Olivia stepped sideways. Not a dodge, exactly. More like someone casually moving out of the way of foot traffic in a corridor. Korvax's claws passed through empty air, while his momentum carried him slightly past his intended position. "Wow, you're really fast," Olivia commented, sounding genuinely impressed rather than frightened. "Jake was more of a grab-and-punch kind of guy. You've actually got technique." Korvax recovered quickly, as his training demanded. The human had gotten lucky with that first evasion, but luck didn't last against systematic application of superior tactics. He circled left, forcing her toward the edge of the combat area where her movement options would be limited. The Gextal tradition emphasizes patience and methodical advancement, he explained, partly for the watching cadets and partly because talking during combat often unsettled opponents. Victory comes to those who maintain discipline under pressure. Oh, absolutely, Olivia agreed, rotating to keep facing him without apparent effort. My wrestling coach always said the same thing. Patience and pressure, he used to tell us. Make them come to you, then make them regret it. Vexthul's implants registered a data anomaly. The human's casual conversation suggested either supreme confidence or complete ignorance of her danger. But her positioning and movement patterns showed clear tactical awareness. She'd maintained optimal distance throughout Korvax's positioning attempt, and somehow ended up with the better angle despite appearing to move randomly. Korvax launched his second attack, a combination strike that flowed from high claw sweep to low tail whip, designed to force the opponent into a vulnerable defensive posture. The technique was virtually impossible to counter without specialized training and superior reflexes. Olivia ducked under the claw sweep, stepped over the tail whip, and somehow ended up inside Korvax's guard, with her hand resting lightly on his wrist. Nice combo, she said conversationally. You've got good flow between your attacks. The timing's a little predictable, though. Like when the Henderson twins tried to double-team me at regionals. They had great technique, but they telegraphed their transitions. Before Korvax could process what was happening, Olivia had applied gentle pressure to a specific point on his wrist. His entire arm went numb. Not painful, just suddenly unresponsive, as if someone had disconnected the neural pathways between his brain and his limb. What? He began. Oh, sorry about that, Olivia said, immediately releasing the pressure. Sensation flooded back into his arm, accompanied by an odd tingling feeling. Didn't mean to actually do the pressure point thing. I was just trying to control your position. Zara's medical scanner was emitting a steady stream of alerts. The biometric data made no sense. The human had just demonstrated knowledge of Gextal neural cluster locations, information that required years of anatomical study to master, while simultaneously claiming it was accidental. Korvax shook his arm vigorously, trying to restore full sensation. Around the training circle, he noticed the younger cadets leaning forward with obvious interest. This was not going according to plan. Perhaps you have some combat training after all, he admitted grudgingly. Just high school wrestling, Olivia replied, and helping out on my uncle's ranch during summers. You learn to handle livestock that doesn't want to cooperate. She said this as if it explained everything, which only made it more confusing. Vexthul's probability calculations were generating increasingly erratic results. The human's actions didn't match any combat doctrine in his extensive database, yet they were proving surprisingly effective against standard techniques. Korvax decided to abandon measured tactics in favor of overwhelming force. His warrior caste physiology gave him significant advantages in speed and strength, advantages that became more pronounced under pressure. He launched a sustained assault, combining strikes and grappling attempts in rapid succession. For the next 30 seconds, the training yard became a blur of motion. Korvax attacked with everything he'd learned over 17 years of combat training, pressing his advantages relentlessly. Olivia responded by having what appeared to be a casual conversation. You know, this really does remind me of the Henderson twins, she said, somehow avoiding a particularly vicious combination strike while barely seeming to pay attention. They were state champions too. Really impressive athletes. She caught his follow-up punch in her palm, redirected it harmlessly past her shoulder, and used his own momentum to spin him off balance. The thing about wrestling bigger opponents is that you can't fight strength with strength. You have to use leverage and timing. Korvax found himself stumbling backward, completely off-center. Before he could recover, Olivia had stepped behind him and applied what felt like gentle pressure to his shoulder blade. His entire right side went limp. Sorry, she said quickly, releasing whatever she'd done. I keep forgetting that nerve cluster thing works on everyone. Are you okay? Around the circle, Zara heard several sharp intakes of breath from the watching cadets. Her scanner was recording impossible data. The human was demonstrating intimate knowledge of multiple species' neural anatomy, while claiming it was all accidental. Vex Thul stepped forward, his combat analysis protocols demanding intervention. Korvax, perhaps I should... No, Korvax snarled, his pride overriding tactical sense. This human thinks her primitive techniques are sufficient. Let her face multiple opponents. This was definitely not in accordance with Academy regulations, but Vex Thul's loyalty to his friend overrode procedural concerns. He moved to flank the human while Korvax recovered his position. Olivia looked between them with obvious concern. Guys, I really don't think this is necessary. I mean, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but... Both aliens attacked simultaneously. What happened next would later be described by Zara in her medical report as a textbook demonstration of human combat efficiency achieved through principles not yet understood by galactic military science. Korvax and Vex Thul had coordinated their assault perfectly, timing their strikes to eliminate the humans' evasion options while maximizing their combined advantages in reach and strength. It should have ended the engagement within seconds. Instead, Olivia somehow moved between their attacks, used Korvax's momentum to redirect him into Vex Thul, applied two different pressure point techniques simultaneously, and left both aliens on the ground in a controlled but completely helpless state. The entire sequence took approximately 4 seconds. Oh no, Olivia said, immediately kneeling beside both fallen aliens. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to go that hard. Are you guys hurt? Can you move your fingers? Korvax tried to respond but discovered his vocal cords weren't responding properly. Neither were his legs, arms, or most of his torso. He could breathe and blink, but everything else seemed to be operating under someone else's control. Beside him, Vex Thul was experiencing similar symptoms, though his cybernetic implants were still functioning. The data they were collecting painted a disturbing picture. The human had somehow triggered a cascade of neural disruptions, using nothing more than precisely applied pressure at specific anatomical points. Zara, Olivia called to the medical observer. Can you check them? I think I might have hit the wrong nerve clusters. I was trying to just immobilize them temporarily, but your anatomy is a little different than what I'm used to. Zara approached cautiously, her scanner already painting a detailed picture of the alien's condition. Multiple temporary neural blocks, some muscular paralysis, and what appeared to be a mild concussion in Vex Thul's case. Serious but not permanent, assuming the human actually knew how to reverse whatever she'd done. What exactly did you do to them? Zara asked. Just basic pressure point stuff, Olivia replied, looking genuinely worried. My uncle taught me how to handle ornery cattle without hurting them. Same general principles, just different anatomy. She paused, studying Korvax's prone form. Though I guess I should have asked about species differences first. That was really thoughtless of me. Before Zara could respond, the sound of rapidly approaching footsteps announced the arrival of Instructor Genix, drawn by reports of an unauthorized combat engagement. The veteran drill instructor took one look at the scene, 2 of his most capable students lying paralyzed while a human cadet knelt beside them in obvious distress, and activated his emergency medical beacon. What happened here? He demanded. Training accident, Olivia said quickly. I think I used too much force during a sparring exercise. Can we get them to the medical bay? I'm not sure how long the nerve blocks will last. Ginnicks's 4 eyes narrowed as he processed this information. In 30 years of military instruction, he'd never heard of nerve blocks being applied as a combat technique, particularly not by someone who looked genuinely apologetic about their effectiveness. You applied nerve blocks? He asked carefully. Well, yeah, Olivia said as if this should be obvious. I mean, I wasn't trying to actually hurt them. Just neutralize the threat until things could calm down. Standard de-escalation stuff. She said this while casually helping to lift Korvax onto the arriving medical transport, handling his considerable weight with apparent ease despite being roughly half his size. The medical bay of the Galactic Military Academy was designed to handle training injuries from dozens of different species, but Zara had never encountered a case quite like this one. Korvax and Vex Thul were stable but completely mystified by their condition, while her diagnostic equipment struggled to analyze the precise nature of their neural disruptions. The pressure points she targeted, Zara explained to Instructor Ginix as they reviewed the medical data, correspond to major nerve junction clusters in both species, but the technique required to affect them this precisely. She paused, checking her readings again. This is anatomical knowledge that takes years to master, combined with pressure application that should require significantly more physical strength than the human possesses. Ginix studied the scanner displays with growing confusion. How long until they recover? Unknown, Zara admitted. I'm not sure how to reverse effects I don't understand. She glanced toward the treatment room where both patients were conscious, but still largely immobilized. The human said she knew how to undo what she did, but I'm hesitant to allow unregulated intervention. Let me talk to them, Ginix decided. In the treatment room, Korvax and Vex Thul were engaged in what could charitably be described as a heated discussion, despite their limited ability to move or gesture. Completely unprecedented, Vex Thul was saying, his voice slightly slurred but his analytical mind still functioning. My combat databases contain no reference to human capabilities of this magnitude. She was toying with us, Korvax growled, though the effect was diminished by his prone position and partial facial paralysis. No opponent neutralizes 2 trained warriors by accident. But her physiological responses suggested genuine concern for our welfare, Vex Thul pointed out. Elevated stress hormones, increased heart rate, behaviors consistent with empathetic distress rather than victory satisfaction. Ginix cleared his throat to announce his presence. Cadets, how are you feeling? Like our entire understanding of combat effectiveness has been fundamentally challenged, Vex Thul replied with characteristic precision. Korvax attempted to nod agreement, but managed only a slight head twitch. Instructor, request permission to learn human combat techniques. This was not what Ginix had expected to hear. You want to train with the cadet who just sent you both to medical? She demonstrated tactical superiority while showing restraint and concern for opponent welfare, Vex Thul explained. These are qualities the Academy seeks to develop in all students. Before Ginix could respond, a gentle knock announced Olivia's arrival. She peered around the doorframe with obvious anxiety. Hey guys, how are you feeling? I brought cookies. She held up a small container. My mom's recipe. They're not fancy or anything, but she always said cookies make everything better after a rough day. The scent of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies filled the medical bay, creating a surreal contrast with the high-tech equipment and clinical atmosphere. You made cookies? Zara asked, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding medical protocols. Well, I used the Academy kitchen replicators, Olivia admitted, setting the container on a nearby table. But it's my mom's actual recipe. She sent it along with my acceptance letter, in case I got homesick. She looked at the two immobilized aliens with genuine worry. "Are you guys okay? I can try to reverse the pressure point thing, but I want to make sure it's safe first." Ginix found himself in the unusual position of having to translate between a human offering baked goods and two of his most capable students who were requesting combat training from their opponent. "Cadet Martinez," he began carefully. "Cadets Korvax and Vex Thule have expressed interest in learning about your techniques." "Oh." Olivia's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "That's awesome. I mean, I'm not really a teacher or anything, but I'd be happy to share what I know. Wrestling's a great sport. Builds character, teaches discipline, all that good stuff." She paused, looking between the still paralyzed aliens. "But maybe we should start with getting you guys back to normal. I promise the reverse pressure point thing is totally safe. I've done it hundreds of times with livestock." The casual comparison between elite military cadets and farm animals might have been insulting under different circumstances, but Olivia's obvious sincerity and concern seemed to neutralize any potential offense. "Please proceed," Ginix authorized. What followed was perhaps the most educational 5 minutes of Zara's medical career. Olivia approached each patient, explained exactly what she was going to do, and then applied what appeared to be gentle pressure to specific points on their necks and shoulders. Within seconds, both aliens were sitting up and moving normally, flexing their limbs to confirm full functionality. "How did you learn to do that?" Zara asked, her scanner recording every detail of the recovery process. "Uncle Pete," Olivia replied matter-of-factly. "He runs a cattle ranch outside Denver, and sometimes the animals get stressed or aggressive. He taught me how to calm them down without using sedatives or restraints. Same basic principles work on most mammalian nervous systems, apparently." She said this as if comparing military cadets to livestock was perfectly normal, which somehow made it even more impressive. Korvax stood slowly, testing his restored mobility. The paralysis was completely gone, leaving only a slight tingling sensation and a profound sense of having experienced something unprecedented. "These techniques," he said carefully, "they're common knowledge among humans?" "Well, not everyone learns them," Olivia replied. "But if you grow up around ranching or livestock, yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. My high school wrestling team used to practice pressure point control for defensive purposes. Coach said it was good for building confidence against bigger opponents. Vexathoul's implants were processing this information at maximum capacity. Your entire species learns combat techniques capable of neutralizing trained warriors as recreational activities." "I guess you could put it that way," Olivia said, looking slightly confused by his amazement. "I mean, it's not really combat training. More like practical problem solving. Like, what do you do when something bigger and stronger than you is causing problems, but you don't want to actually hurt it?" Ginix felt a familiar sensation, the same intellectual vertigo he'd experienced years ago when first studying galactic military history and realizing how many impossible human achievements were simply recorded as routine historical events. "Cadet Martinez," he said slowly, "when you mentioned helping repair the gravity generator earlier." "Oh, that." Olivia waved dismissively. "Yeah, the maintenance crew was having trouble with the primary stabilizer. Turns out the quantum resonance chamber just needed realignment. Pretty basic engineering stuff, really." She said this as if casually fixing academy equipment during her free time was perfectly normal student behavior. Zara's medical training kicked in, demanding she ask the obvious question. "How did you know how to repair quantum resonance equipment?" "YouTube," Olivia replied immediately. "Well, the human equivalent. My dad's a mechanic, so I grew up fixing things. Quantum resonance isn't that different from combustion engine repair, once you understand the basic principles. It's all just controlled energy conversion, right?" The medical bay fell silent as 3 Academy staff members and 2 elite cadets processed the implications of this statement. You learned quantum engineering from recreational videos? Ginix asked weakly. Among other things, Olivia confirmed cheerfully. The Academy Library has a great selection of technical manuals too. I've been catching up on galactic technology standards during my free time. Really fascinating stuff. You guys have some brilliant approaches to problems we're still working on back home. She reached for the cookie container, offering it around the room. Anyone want one? They're really good. Mom's secret is adding just a tiny bit of sea salt to balance the sweetness. Korvax accepted a cookie with what could only be described as reverence. After everything that had happened, the simple gesture of sharing homemade food felt profoundly significant. Cadet Martinez, he said formally, I would be honored to learn from your combat expertise. And I would like to understand your engineering methods, Vexthul added. Olivia beamed at both of them. That sounds great. Maybe we can set up some study sessions. I could use help with galactic military, protocols, and you guys probably know way more about tactical theory than I do. Ginix realized he was witnessing something unprecedented, the informal establishment of a cross-species study group that would likely revolutionize Academy training methods. The human cadet had neutralized 2 of his best students, repaired critical Academy infrastructure, and was now offering homemade cookies while proposing mutual educational exchange. I'll arrange for formal training schedules, he heard himself say, with proper supervision and medical oversight. Awesome, Olivia said, then glanced at the chronometer on the wall. Oh, speaking of schedules, I should probably get going. I promised the Warp Core maintenance team I'd take a look at their antimatter containment system after dinner. Apparently, they're having some efficiency issues with the magnetic bottle configuration. She gathered up her cookie container and headed for the door, pausing to wave goodbye to everyone in the medical bay. Thanks for the sparring session, guys. It was really fun. And don't worry about going easy on me next time. I can handle a lot more intensity than that. The door closed behind her, leaving 4 Academy personnel and 1 recovering cadet to stare at each other in contemplative silence. Did she just say she was going to repair the warp core? Zara asked eventually. As a favor, Ginix confirmed numbly. After dinner, Vexthul's implants emitted a soft chime as his analysis protocols reached an inevitable conclusion. I believe we may need to completely revise our assumptions about human capabilities. Korvax bit into his cookie, savoring the unexpected combination of chocolate, vanilla, and sea salt. Agreed, he said thoughtfully, though I'm beginning to suspect that might be the point. Through the medical bay windows, they could see Olivia Martinez walking across the Academy courtyard, her maintenance toolkit slung over one shoulder, and her step light with the casual confidence of someone heading off to solve another impossible problem before bedtime. In her wake, the Galactic Military Academy began the slow process of realizing that everything they thought they knew about human limitations might have been fundamentally, spectacularly wrong. The cookies, everyone agreed later, were absolutely perfect.